The worst time to feel good about your life is exactly the time it matters most. And the reason you have never been told this, the reason every instinct you have fights against it, the reason your own mind will call you delusional for even attempting it, is because the culture you were raised in made a fundamental error about the relationship between your circumstances and your emotions. It taught you that feelings are responses, that they come after, that something good happens and then you feel good, that something bad happens and then you feel bad, and that this sequence is not only normal, but intelligent, responsible even, the sign of a well-adjusted, rational person who is paying attention to reality. But what if that sequence is precisely backwards? What if the people who wait to feel good until their circumstances improve are not being realistic? What if they are, without knowing it, locking themselves into an endless loop where the improved circumstances can never arrive because the feeling that would attract them is perpetually postponed? What if the most logical thing you could ever do, the most strategic, the most powerful, is something that looks from the outside like it makes no sense at all? Neville Goddard had a phrase for this. He did not call it optimism. He did not call it positive thinking. He described something far more radical, far more precise, and far more demanding than anything the modern self-help industry has watered it down to. He spoke about assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, while every piece of visible evidence screams that the wish has not been fulfilled and may never be. He spoke about maintaining an internal state that has absolutely no support from the external world. He spoke about faith, real faith, not as a passive hope that things might get better, but as an active, deliberate, sustained choice to feel the reality of something that does not yet exist in the physical world. And here's the part that will challenge everything you believe about how life works. He was not speaking metaphorically. He was describing the actual mechanics of how your physical reality is generated. And once you understand those mechanics, you will see that what the world calls illogical positivity is not illogical at all. It is the only approach that has ever made any sense. Let us start with the error. The foundational mistake that keeps intelligent, hardworking, genuinely good people trapped in circumstances they have been trying to escape for years. The error is this. You believe that your emotions are a readout. You believe they are a measurement device, like a thermometer, designed to register the temperature of your life and report it back to you accurately. Something wonderful happens. The thermometer reads high. Something terrible happens. The thermometer reads low. And you trust this instrument completely. You consider it the most honest part of yourself. When someone asks how you're doing, and you say, "Not great," you believe you are telling the truth. You believe you are being authentic. And in a culture that worships authenticity, being honest about your suffering feels not just acceptable, but noble. But here is what Neville understood that most people never will. Your emotions are not a thermometer. They are a thermostat. They do not read the temperature of your life. They set it. The feeling comes first. The circumstance follows. Not the other way around. Never the other way around. And every moment you spend adjusting your emotional state to match your current conditions, you are not being honest. You are programming tomorrow to look exactly like today. Think about what this means. When you lose your job and you feel afraid, you believe the fear is a natural response to the job loss. It feels like the job loss caused the fear. But what is actually happening is that the fear is becoming the dominant frequency of your being. And that frequency is now the instruction set being sent outward into the field of reality that Neville described as infinitely responsive to human consciousness. The fear is not a response. It is an order. And the universe will fill it. It will deliver more circumstances that match the frequency of fear with the same precision that a radio delivers the station you have tuned to. Not because the universe is cruel, because the universe is exact. This is not a belief system. This is the description of a mechanism. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every time you match your emotional state to your worst circumstances, you are placing an order for more of the same. Every time you let the bill on the counter determine the feeling in your chest, you have just asked for another bill. Every time you let a difficult conversation define your inner state for the rest of the day, you have just requested more difficult conversations. The world is not doing this to you. You are doing it to yourself, one emotional reaction at a time, with perfect consistency, and then wondering why the same patterns keep appearing in your life no matter how many times you try to change them from the outside. Now, this is where the concept of illogical positivity enters. And I want to be extremely precise about what this term means, because it does not mean what you think it means. Illogical positivity is not toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is the refusal to acknowledge that something painful is happening. It is the pasted-on smile. It is the "everything happens for a reason" cliché offered to someone in the middle of genuine crisis. It is shallow, dismissive, and ultimately corrosive because it demands that you deny your own experience in order to maintain an appearance of wellness. Neville Goddard never asked anyone to do this. Not once. What Neville described, and what illogical positivity actually is, operates on a completely different level. It is the practice of fully acknowledging your current circumstances, seeing them clearly and without denial, and then deliberately choosing to feel as though a different reality is already true. Not will be true someday. Not might be true if you work hard enough. Is true. Now. In this moment. While the bills are still on the counter. While the diagnosis is still on the paper. While the relationship is still strained. While every single piece of evidence in your external world is telling you that what you want does not exist. This is what makes it illogical. It has no logical support. There is no external evidence to justify the feeling. There is no reasonable basis for the inner state you are choosing to maintain. Your mind will revolt against it. Your friends will question it. Your own nervous system, conditioned over decades to treat circumstances as the authority on how you should feel, will fight you at every step. And that is precisely why it works. Because the universe does not respond to what is logical. It responds to what is felt. And a feeling held with conviction in the absence of evidence is the most powerful creative act a human being can perform. Neville called this living in the end, not living toward the end, not working your way to the end, living in it, inhabiting the emotional reality of the fulfilled wish as though it has already occurred, and doing so with such consistency, such naturalness, such quiet certainty that your subconscious mind begins to accept it as fact. And when your subconscious accepts something as fact, it begins to reorganize your perception, your behavior, your impulses, your timing, and your encounters to bring the physical world into alignment with the inner reality you have assumed. Let me make this concrete, because understanding alone will not change anything. Understanding is the map. What I'm about to describe is the territory you must actually walk through. Imagine you are in the worst financial period of your life. The numbers are frightening. The pressure is constant. You wake up at 3 a.m. with your stomach in knots, running calculations that never add up. Every logical fiber of your being is screaming that you should be worried, that you should be planning, that you should be strategizing with the urgency of someone whose house is on fire. Now, illogical positivity does not ask you to ignore the fire. It does not ask you to pretend the numbers are different. It does not ask you to throw your bills in the trash and dance around your living room chanting about abundance. What it asks you to do is infinitely harder and infinitely more powerful than any of that. It asks you to sit down in the middle of that storm and find within yourself the specific feeling of financial security. Not the thought of it, not the affirmation of it, the feeling. The actual, embodied, nervous system level sensation of being someone for whom money is not a source of anxiety. The relaxation in the shoulders, the ease in the breathing, the quiet, almost bored calm of someone who simply does not worry about money because there has never been a reason to. Neville was exacting about this. He did not say, think about what you want. He did not say, visualize what you want. He said, feel the wish fulfilled. The feeling is the secret. Not because feelings are pleasant and you deserve to feel good, although you do, but because the feeling is the broadcast signal. It is the frequency. It is the instruction. It is the creative act. Everything else, the thoughts, the visualizations, the affirmations, these are only useful to the degree that they help you generate and sustain the feeling. They are vehicles. The feeling is the destination. And here is the part that Neville was uncompromising about, the part that separates his teaching from every watered-down version of it that has been repackaged and sold in the decades since. You must hold this feeling not just when it is easy, not just during a morning meditation when the world is quiet and nothing has gone wrong yet. You must hold it in the hard times. You must hold it when the evidence against it is mounting. You must hold it when every person around you is confirming the old story. You must hold it when your own body is screaming that this feeling is a lie. Because the hard times are not an obstacle to the practice. The hard times are the practice. They are the furnace in which your new state of consciousness is forged. Anyone can feel abundant when money is flowing in. That is not creation. That is reaction. Anyone can feel loved when they are being showered with affection. That is not faith. That is observation. The creative act, the act that actually changes your reality, is feeling abundant when your wallet is empty, feeling loved when you are alone, feeling healthy when your body is struggling, feeling certain when there is nothing to be certain about. This is illogical. This is irrational. This is unreasonable. And this is the single most powerful thing you will ever learn to do. Now let me address the objection I know is rising in you, because if it weren't, you would not be human. The objection sounds like this. This is self-delusion. You are asking me to lie to myself. You are asking me to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. How is that different from denial? How is that healthy? I honor that objection. It comes from the protective part of your intelligence, the part that has kept you alive by paying close attention to threats. That part of you is not wrong to be cautious. It is doing its job, but its job is survival. And you are no longer just trying to survive. You are trying to create, and creation operates on entirely different principles than survival. Here is the distinction that dissolves the objection entirely. Denial says the problem does not exist. Illogical positivity says the problem exists, and it is not the final word on what is possible. Denial is unconscious. It hides from reality. Illogical positivity is the most conscious act you are capable of. It stares reality in the face and says, with full awareness and full composure, I see you, I acknowledge you, and I am choosing to feel something that does not match you, because I understand that you are a reflection of a past state, not a prophecy of a future one. This is not lying to yourself. This is recognizing a truth that is deeper than the surface circumstances. The deeper truth is that your current reality is not a wall. It is a shadow. It is the shadow cast by a state of consciousness you were living in weeks or months or years ago. Shadows are real. You can see them. You can measure them. But no sane person tries to change a shadow by manipulating the shadow itself. You change a shadow by changing the object that casts it. And the object, in this case, is your state of being, your dominant inner feeling, the emotional posture you are holding when no one is watching. Neville used to say that everyone is free to create their reality, but very few will ever choose to, because the discipline required to maintain a state that contradicts the evidence is more than most people are willing to practice. It is not that the teaching is complicated. A child could understand it. It is that the execution requires a steadiness of inner conviction that most adults have never developed. Not because they lack the capacity, but because no one ever told them it mattered. No one ever told them that their emotional state was the primary creative instrument of their life. And so they let it be played by every passing circumstance, like a piano, left in the middle of a public street. Every stranger's fingers banging on the keys, producing noise instead of music. You are not here to produce noise. You are here to compose, and composing means you decide what notes are played. You. Not your circumstances, not the economy, not the diagnosis, not the relationship, not the past. You. So how do you actually practice this? How do you hold a feeling that nothing in your environment supports? How do you become the lighthouse that shines, regardless of the storm, when every instinct in your body says to wait for the storm to pass before turning on the light? The first thing you must understand is that you are not trying to feel good all day, every day about everything. That is not what Neville taught, and that is not what illogical positivity requires. What it requires is that you create a dedicated, daily practice of entering the state of your fulfilled wish, and that you protect that state with the same seriousness with which you would protect anything sacred to you. Neville's method was precise. Before sleep, as you lie in bed with your eyes closed and your body relaxed, you construct a single scene. Not a movie, not a saga, a single brief scene that implies your wish has already been fulfilled. If you want financial freedom, you might imagine a conversation with a trusted friend where they congratulate you, and you feel the warmth and ease of someone for whom money is no longer a concern. If you want to be healthy, you might imagine yourself running up a flight of stairs with ease, feeling the vitality in your legs and the fullness of your breath. If you want a specific relationship, you might imagine a quiet moment of closeness, a hand on your back, a voice you know saying your name with tenderness. The scene must be short, it must be vivid, and you must see it from inside it, from first person, looking out through your own eyes, not watching yourself from the outside as though it were a film. You are not an audience member. You are the one living the scene. And the critical instruction, the one that makes the entire practice work or fail, is that you must feel it as real, not imagine it as something you hope will happen. Feel it as something that is happening now. Let your body respond to it. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing deepen. Let the quiet satisfaction of someone whose wish has been granted settle into your chest like warmth spreading from a fire. Then loop the scene. Play it again and again, not mechanically, with feeling. Each time you loop it, let the feeling deepen. Let it become more natural. Let it stop being something you are generating through effort and start being something that simply is, the way the warmth of a bath stops being something you notice and starts being something you are inside of. Neville said you should do this until you fall asleep in that state. Because the state in which you enter sleep is the state your subconscious mind marinates in for hours. It is the instruction set that operates unchallenged by your waking mind's doubts and objections. Sleep is when the seeds are planted deepest. Sleep is when the soil of consciousness is most receptive, and the feeling you carry into sleep is the seed. But here is where the real work lives, and it is not in the evening practice. The evening practice plants the seed. The daytime practice protects it. When you wake up and the old reality is still there, when the financial pressure has not vanished overnight, when the relationship has not magically healed, when the body has not been transformed between sunset and sunrise, this is the moment of truth. This is the moment where most people abandon the practice. They look at the unchanged circumstances and they conclude that it did not work, that the feeling they cultivated last night was a fantasy that dissolved in the light of day. And so they return to the old feeling, the old state, the old frequency. They pick up the thermometer again and let the external temperature dictate their internal one, and the cycle continues. What Neville asked you to do in this moment is what he called the Sabbath, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in his entire teaching. The Sabbath is not a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is the state of rest that follows creation. In the book of Genesis, the creative act was followed by rest, not because the Creator was tired, but because the creation was complete. The Sabbath is the declaration that the work is done, that the seed has been planted, that the feeling has been impressed upon the subconscious, and that now Your only job is to refrain from digging up the seed to check whether it is growing. This is what it looks like in practice. You wake up. The old world is still there. And instead of reacting to it with the familiar emotions, you pause. You take a breath, and you gently, without force, without strain, return to the feeling of last night's scene. Not by replaying the scene in full detail, though you can if it helps, but by simply slipping back into the felt sense of the person who has already received what they asked for. The ease, the lightness, the quiet gratitude, the absence of grasping. You wear this feeling the way you wear your clothes, lightly, naturally, without constantly drawing attention to it. And then, when the day delivers its inevitable provocations, when a bill arrives or a conversation turns sour or a plan falls through, you observe the provocation without letting it evict you from your state. You see it. You handle it practically if action is required. But you do not let it rewrite the feeling you are carrying. You treat the unwanted circumstance the way a seasoned actor treats a heckler in the audience. You acknowledge their presence without letting them take over the show. This is not suppression. Suppression is pretending you do not feel something that you do. This is selection. It is the conscious choice to maintain a feeling that you have deliberately cultivated instead of defaulting to one that is being imposed on you by circumstances you are in the process of transcending. There is a world of difference between the two. One is repression, the other is mastery. Now, I need to prepare you for what happens next, because there is a phase of this process that no one enjoys, that most people interpret as failure, and that is actually the most critical evidence that the practice is working. When you begin to hold a state that contradicts your current reality, the current reality does not immediately bow and step aside. Often, it does the opposite. It intensifies. The financial pressure may get momentarily worse. The relationship may hit a new low. The physical symptoms may flare. Old patterns may surface with a vengeance, like a dying fire that flares up one last time before it goes out. Neville knew this. He spoke about it openly. He called it the bridge of incidents, the series of events that carry you from your current state to the state you have assumed. And the bridge is not always pretty. Sometimes the path from where you are to where you have declared yourself to be involves demolition before construction. The old must be cleared before the new can be built. And the clearing can look and feel like things are falling apart. This is where people panic. This is where they say, "It's getting worse, not better. This proves it doesn't work." But the worsening is not proof that it doesn't work. It is proof that it does. Reality is rearranging. The old structure, built on the foundation of your old state, is becoming unstable because the foundation has shifted. You have changed the frequency, and the physical form that was built on the old frequency can no longer sustain itself. It must come apart so that the new form, the one that matches your new frequency, can take its place. Your only job during this phase is the same job you had yesterday and the same job you will have tomorrow. Hold the state. Hold the feeling. Not perfectly, not without ever slipping, but persistently, gently, with the quiet stubbornness of someone who has decided what is true for them and who is willing to outlast any temporary evidence to the contrary. Neville once told his audiences that the world you see is the world you have already created, and that the world you feel is the world you are creating now. These two worlds coexist for a time. The old world is still visible, still loud, still demanding your emotional attention. The new world is still invisible, still silent, still taking form beneath the surface. And your faith, your illogical, unreasonable, evidence-defying faith, is the bridge that carries you from one to the other. There is something else I want to address, because it is a subtlety that most people miss entirely. And missing it is the difference between practicing this with power and practicing this with exhaustion. Illogical positivity is not effort. It is not the gritting of your teeth while you force yourself to feel something you do not naturally feel. If it feels like effort, you are doing it wrong. Not wrong in a way that should discourage you, but wrong in a way that needs to be corrected before you can proceed effectively. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is not something you manufacture. It is something you allow. It is already available to you right now, in this very moment, regardless of your circumstances. The feeling of being loved is not dependent on being loved by a specific person. It is a frequency your body already knows how to generate, because you have felt it before. The feeling of abundance is not dependent on a number in an account. It is a state your nervous system has already experienced, perhaps in childhood, perhaps in a brief moment of unexpected generosity, perhaps in a dream. These feelings are not foreign to you. They are native to you. They are part of your original equipment. You are not building something from nothing. You are remembering something you forgot. This is why Neville's technique works so well at the edge of sleep. In that state, the conscious mind, with all its objections and its insistence on evidence, relaxes its grip. The subconscious, which has no capacity for doubt and no interest in logic, becomes accessible. And in that open, receptive state, a feeling does not need to be forced. It only needs to be invited. You offer it gently, the way you would offer your hand to a shy animal, not with a grab, with a patient, open palm, and the feeling comes, not because you overpowered your doubt, but because you found a doorway around it. During the day, the same principle applies. You are not trying to overpower the negative emotions that arise in response to difficult circumstances. You are not standing in the middle of a crisis shouting affirmations at yourself while your body trembles with anxiety. You are doing something much quieter and much more effective. You are finding, in any given moment, the smallest thread of the feeling you are cultivating, and you are gently pulling on it. It might be as simple as taking a breath and remembering the scene from last night. It might be as subtle as noticing the way the sunlight falls through a window and letting that simple beauty open a tiny door to gratitude. It might be nothing more than a half second of choosing not to spiral when the old thought pattern starts its familiar loop. These small choices are the practice, not grand dramatic gestures of willpower, small, quiet, persistent redirections of your emotional attention toward the state you have chosen to inhabit. Over time, these redirections compound. The new state gains mass. It gains gravity. It begins to pull your thoughts toward it automatically, rather than requiring you to push your thoughts toward it manually. And when that tipping point is reached, when the new state has become more natural than the old one, you will look up one day and realize that the external world has rearranged itself so thoroughly, so precisely, that the life you are living is the life you once lay in bed imagining. I want to close with something that Neville said near the end of his teaching career, something that I believe captures the entire essence of illogical positivity in a single devastating sentence. He said, "An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact." Read that again. Let the weight of it settle. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. He is telling you that the truth or falsity of your feeling does not matter. What matters is your persistence. What matters is your refusal to let go. What matters is your willingness to feel something that has no logical support and to keep feeling it, morning after morning, night after night, crisis after crisis, until the physical world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. This is the most radical statement that has ever been made about the nature of reality. It says that you do not need permission from your circumstances to feel what you want to feel. It says that the hard times are not a wall but a canvas, and that the feeling you choose to paint across them is the very thing that determines what comes next. It says that the person who can hold joy in the middle of sorrow, who can hold certainty in the middle of chaos, who can hold abundance in the middle of lack, is not delusional. They are an artist. They are a creator. They are doing the only thing that has ever actually changed anything. The world will call it illogical. Let it. The world has always called the most powerful things illogical. It called flight illogical. It called the idea that the earth orbits the sun illogical. It called every truth that contradicted the visible evidence illogical right up until the moment the evidence caught up. Your job is not to convince the world that your inner state is valid. Your job is not to explain yourself. Your job is not to wait for circumstances to give you permission to feel whole. Your job is to feel it now, in the hard times, especially in the hard times, to carry the warmth of your fulfilled wish through every cold room you're asked to walk through, to let the feeling be the fire you tend, the one steady flame in a world of wind, and to trust, with everything you have, that what is burning inside you is already shaping what is forming around you. Not someday, now, the only moment creation has ever occurred in, the only moment it ever will.